I remember like it was yesterday. I had just given my heart to Christ, and it was months, and I was studying the Word of God ferociously. But I was about to give a Bible study to someone who was, quite frankly, very intimidating. I was so new at the time, and I was with my partner, and I remember this one instance. I was there talking, and my contact, they had asked this question, and it was something that I knew the answer. I knew how to share, and I was just excited. I was getting ready to pounce, and I knew exactly what I was going to say. But my partner, he responded, and when he did, it was totally different than what I had expected. It was way different. I was about to like go to war, but he was just so tactful and kind, and like the way that he responded to his question, what like shocked me, and I was like, what is going on here? And so I decided to just kind of sit back and observe and listen, and he was more experienced than I was, so I was just like, what is going on? And as I saw the result, I realized they were totally different than what I would have done. And I was just so eager to understand why. So when the Bible study ended, it ended on a good note. The person was able to come closer to Christ, and they understand more of God's word than ever before. And like I know, like I would have been like Peter, just chopping off ears and going hack, and that approach wouldn't have worked, because then he wouldn't have ears to hear. So I remember we went into the car after that Bible study. We're still in the driveway of our contacts, and he was like, "Remember when he asked that question?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Do you know why I answered that way?" I'm like, "No, please tell me." And he's like, and then his response, he was like, "Okay, the reason why I did that was," and then he explained to me this little thing called tact, and it changed my life forever. So today, I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit more of these 5 principles of tact that you can immediately apply to when you see things differently. Today's video is called "When You Win the Argument but Lose the Soul." So we're going to go into this, but first, my name is Enoch Leffingwell, and here at the Army of Youth, we are passionate about helping young people to identify their unique talents and to dedicate them to the Lord's service. If this is something that interests you, then I encourage you to subscribe, to follow us on social, so that you can get more messages just like this. So these were some of the principles of tact that God was sharing, and what he began to he was sharing through my partner, and what he began to explain was in John 16 and verse 12. Jesus spoke to his disciples, and he said that "I have yet many things to say unto you, but you cannot bear them now." And I was like, what? You mean to tell me that Jesus had the truth? He had all these things that he could share, but he chose not to because of the readiness of the people? I was like, wow, this is amazing. And he began to share how there are 3 things that need to be in place when we are sharing the Word of God. It's not enough to just have the truth and share it regardless of what happened. There are 3 things that are essential. We need to have the right words spoken at the right time and in the right way. If we miss any of these things, then we will find that many times the destiny of souls hangs upon the manner in which we present the truth. It's not alone just to have the right truth and the right words and just give it to them regardless, but we can actually, like Peter, cut off ears. We can push people away by how we share with people. If we're not careful, it's saying it the right words at the right time in the right way. These 3 makes the most biggest difference. And he was explaining to me that that particular question was something that is like, as far as like his background and his his mindset of or group of beliefs, that's one of the most cherished, the most like such cherished ideas, that it is one of the hardest things to get that class of people to give up. So in our early Bible studies, we're not going to address that yet. We're going to keep that in mind to address later. And so at first, we're going to study some things that we can get some good grounds on, he could agree with, and then we'll be able to address this later. I'm like, whoa, that makes sense. Otherwise, he was saying that if we would have addressed it immediately, it would have cut off the Bible study. We wouldn't be able to have a conversation and go any further now. And I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. I remember back in my early years, I was just so tactless with the Word of God. And I was I remember my friends, like, oh, poor friends, those who were closest to me, I was like shoving the bread of life down their throats, like, take this is the truth. And people were like trying to accept it, but it was just like too much. And I was just so zealous. I wanted everybody to hear the words of truth that I was hearing. But I realized that that wasn't actually bringing people closer to Christ. Sometimes it was pushing them away. So it's really important that we recognize that even if it is truth, that doesn't mean it needs to be spoken right now. Jesus showed this very clearly, that there were many things he had to share, but they weren't able to bear it yet. But there's plenty of opportunities, plenty of truths that we can share with people that they are ready, ripe, and willing to listen. So let's try to find how is the Holy Spirit working in their lives, and let's assist them in that direction. And by doing so, we will have greater influence with them to start sharing more objectionable features of our faith, or more difficult truths that require a cross or a challenge. So that's the number one thing, is having the right words spoken at the right time in the right way. Now the second principle that I learned with dealing with tact was that when we speak, we should listen to understand. We should listen with the intent to understand rather than to respond. Now there's a subtle difference, but it's huge on whether or not we'll be able to influence the people we're trying to bring closer to Christ. Proverbs 18 verse 13 says something really convicting. He that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is a folly and a shame unto him. It's like, what? You mean to tell me that I can't just I can't just speak and like, I know that I'm right, so he just needs to stop talking so I can share with others. I mean, sometimes share with him so he could just understand my position, then he would understand. A lot of times we get this idea, but this is totally unbiblical. The Bible says he who does this, it is a shame and a folly. This is foolishness. Because what happens is when we are listening with the intent to respond, we're not actually hearing their objections. We're not hearing where they're coming from. We're not hearing their perspective. But if we listen with the intent to understand, if we seek first, how often do we seek first to understand, then to be understood? When we do that subtle shift, a lot of people are willing to see things differently, see things your way, as long as they know that they're understood first. As long as they know that you heard them, you understood them, and if there's still another way, then they're willing to listen to it. But a lot of times we're so busy about our own thing to make sure that they understand where we're coming from, and that's the only thing we can think about, and it's just like screaming in our head while they're talking about things we disagree with. It's like, I just need to respond. If they could get this, then they'll understand. And then people start interrupting with each other. But this leads to debate. It leads to a lack of understanding. It is not good. And it doesn't get you very far. So a question that I often like to ask myself is, how many times have I personally gone from error to truth? And when I realized that there's actually been a lot of times where I've had greater light, where I've learned more. So this humbles me and it inspires me with a gratitude that I have an opportunity to learn greater light, or to realize that, there's a lot of things that I just don't understand. So by listening with the intent to understand, it opens the doors to be able to work with them and help them to understand better. So I remember with my mom, there used to be a time, she's not like this anymore, praise God. There used to be a time when she tried to give Bible studies to people. It's like they didn't want to hear. They'd be like, okay, it's like we are not talking about the Bible together. She wanted to share with others, but it wasn't really working. And then the same people, I would study with them, and they love opening the Bible with me. They love hearing things. They wanted to study. And it's like, why? What made the difference between wanting to hear or not wanting to hear? And the difference was being willing to listen to them, or not just saying that you're wrong on all these things, but working where they're willing and then moving on incrementally from there. Now she's way more tactful. She's way more successful in soul winning, and it's encouraging to see the growth that she's had along with many of my other students. This right here, listening to understand, makes a world of difference. This is what Proverbs says, and this is what Christ says that we could do. So the third thing that has helped tremendously for influencing others is to recognize that Proverbs 29 verse 11, it says that a fool uttereth all his mind, but the wise man keepeth it till afterwards. So in other words, sometimes when you're disagreeing or when people are, sometimes silence is eloquence. When silence could be the greatest rebuke for speaking the words that are not, when someone's sinning with their lips. Like, silence can really be golden at those opportunities. And so there's a really powerful prayer that I recently learned from a friend of mine, Joyce Brown, and she was sharing how she often prays, Lord, fill my mouth with worthwhile stuff and nudge me when I've said enough. I'm like, that's a beautiful prayer. I want God to nudge me when it's a time, there is a time to speak and a time to keep silent, as Ecclesiastes 3 says. So, Lord, give us wisdom. When is a time to speak and a time to listen? So this is sometimes by hearing things out, then we have greater understanding. And really, when we listen, we're able to actually hear what their objection is, what their concern is, and then we're more calculated, more tactical in the things, the testimonies, the words, the verses that we're sharing that actually addresses their issue. Because you could be talking way over in left field, and that's not even their problem, but you think because it was your problem that if they could just understand you, then they will have it. But that's not how it works. Oftentimes I find that the spirit in which you come into a discussion will determine what spirit will guide you. So what spirit do you want to guide you? I could oftentimes feel, like I could physically feel in my heart when like strife is coming up, when there's a disagreement and I want to be right, or just like I have found that feeling for me has been a trigger to take a step back, to pray and to really recenter with God and say, Lord, am I really reflecting you right now? It's like, well, help me have a humble, willing, teachable heart. And a lot of times we have to ask is, in times like this, is this a hill worth dying on? Is this really a battle that we want to choose? Because it's going to cost some energy, some time, some friends. Sometimes we can push people away, and sometimes we have to ask, like, is it really this important? There are times where we need to stand for the truth, and we need to really speak up. But I believe a lot of times we fabricate fights that don't necessarily have to be there, and they push people away from the very souls that we're trying to bring to Jesus. So we can actually win the argument, but did we win the soul? That's the question. So the number 3 is to realize that silence is eloquence sometimes. You don't have to speak every time that there is a difference of ideas or opinions. So number 4, this tip helps tremendously. This is probably one of the most helpful, is when you come into a disagreement or see things differently, is find common ground. This is one of the most helpful things we could do, especially in the face of an argument. Jesus said in Matthew 5:25, to agree with thine adversary quickly, otherwise things get out of control. And when you're able to find that common ground, when you look for things, asking the question, what could I agree with this person? I may not agree with every opinion, idea, or belief that they hold, but is there something that I can agree with? Let me talk about that first. There is a principle that if you can start helping someone to say yes, 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 it's easier to, if they could say yes at first, it's easier to get them to say another yes or agree with you. That's like with my experienced partner before when I was learning tact. We were studying on things that we had in common. And by studying on things and having in common, it built people like those who are like what? Like themselves. So the more that we are like each other, the more we like each other. And the more that they know, like, and trust you, the more you're able to share with them these controversial things or objectionable things or things that require a sacrifice or a cross. And it's a lot harder to receive. But if you just lead with the most objectionable feature of your faith, the most difficult thing that you have, the most obscure idea or belief that you have, and try to push that on everyone that you meet, that is one sure way to make sure that you are not going to be successful in soul winning or influencing other people. So at first, see what can you agree with. And once what this does is it helps you to come together where it's not really us, like you against me, but it's actually we. And it allows us to not be combating each other, but standing side by side, and together we are looking at this subject, and let's try to understand the truth of this matter. And when you can come from that approach on that common ground, then people are way more open. They're not as defensive. They're far more willing to hear the things that you have to say. This has been so profound. So much so that Paul says in 1 Corinthians 9:22, to the weak became I as the weak, that I might gain the weak. I made all things to all men, that I might by all means save some. So what helps you to have greater influence and persuade people to your way of thinking is being able to agree and find that common ground. And honestly, it's really hard to argue with someone that's agreeing with you. And once you could be very clearly like, hey, we're saying the same thing. We may be looking at it a little differently, but I completely agree. Or even start a sentence by, like, sometimes I'll say something and someone will be like, yeah, but, and then they'll say the same thing worded a little differently, or they'll say something that I agree with that I don't think negates my point. And I'll say, absolutely, I totally agree with you. And then bring on, have you considered this? And then share another point where if at the moment you agree, it disarms a person. And I'm not saying agree with error, but what I am saying is there are a lot of times in conversations that there are things that we could agree on, but instead of taking a moment to like really make that connection, say, hey, I agree together. What we actually do is we just heap on another disagreeable idea or another objectionable thing, and we just object, and it drives people from the foot of the cross. It doesn't draw them near. So this right here is so powerful. Find common ground. And this is often what Paul did when he was teaching Jesus to the Jews. He started with the prophecies. He started with the prophecies of the Messiah because they understood the Old Testament. They understood the prophecies, and he went line by line. And once he could establish that the Messiah would not be this Roman king this king that's going to wipe out the Romans, but it would be a lamb that's ready to die. Then he's like, look, you crucified Christ. The Messiah has come today. And then they were more open to receive once he dwelt on what they had in common, which was the prophecies of the Old Testament. And we could do this in our family life, in our business life, in our personal life, in our interaction, in our relationships with others. It makes a huge difference. Just being more agreeable. Try it out. You might win some friends that way. Now, number 5 is this is the only way to win an argument. This is the only way to win an argument is to avoid it. To avoid it entirely. In fact, Romans chapter 1, verse 29 through 32, the Bible says that debate is one of the works of the flesh. It's in there with murder, with envy, deceit, with rebellion, disobedience to parents, all these terrible sins. And debate is right there. Some of us, we fast for strife and debate, Isaiah 58 says, and to smite with the fists of wickedness. We're looking for ways to argue. We're looking for opportunities to disagree with people, or we're very quick to object to people's ideas. And some people are just very objectionable. I know I used to be like that. By God's grace, the Lord has helped to mild my temper the more that I behold Christ and I try to understand what his method of teaching and changing lives is. And I still got a lot of ways to go. But when I recognized there was this one guy, we called him Doubting Thomas, because every time he would come to church, and while we're eating lunch, he would just want to argue and debate, and he'd bring up all these objectionable questions, and he'd just ask all this stuff, and he just wants to argue every day at church. Every week, he's coming faithfully over and over. He'd raise his hand during church, and he'd try to argue with the pastor. He's trying to argue during lunch, and he'd just sit and argue with anyone who would. And he's getting kicked out of all these different churches, and he's over here. And I remember there's this one guy, he was studying with him, and I learned a lot through the conversations, but I realized that spirit was just it was a lot of debate. And then finally, one of my friends at church, he was studying with him, and he's like, Tom, why are you coming here? And he's like, are you coming here to learn, to share, or are you coming here because you think we're all in error and you just want us to come out and see things your way? He's like, yes, I'm here to bring light in the darkness, and there's a lot of darkness. You guys are all wrong, and this is why I'm here. He's like, oh, so you're just here to debate. You're just here to argue. That's your sole purpose of being here. And so he opened up the Bible to Romans 1:29, and he was showing how debate was one of the works of the flesh. He closed the book, and he's like, look, I've got nothing more to say to you. This is not how you address or win people to different ideas. And when he said that, I was like, whoa, debate. That makes so much sense. How many times? Like, I may have had a debative spirit back then, especially, but what this does, debate actually drives people away. And it's, again, this you against me type of thing. And what are you really trying to do? Are you trying to win the argument? Are you trying to win the soul? Which one matters most to you? Because you can win the argument, lose the soul, and what good was that? Which one does Christ want? I've heard the phrase, a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still. So even if they can't gainsay your arguments, that's not the way to approach people. You may be able to list all of these facts that nobody can cry out against, but if you have not won their heart, if you haven't won their consent, then it does them no good. They're actually pushed further away from you, and now they have a bad taste with you and anyone who believes like you, and it doesn't actually help. So what we hopefully what we can see here is that, number one, it's not just about having the truth, but it's about having the right words spoken at the right time and in the right way. And number two is to listen first to understand, then to be understood. And number three is that oftentimes silence is eloquence. And number four, find common ground. If you can agree on a few things in the beginning, it will open the door for you to handle those disagreeable conversations later with greater effects. A lot of people have it backwards, and therefore they push people away, and nobody wants to study with them, and then they wonder, why doesn't anyone want to listen to me? And it's the debative spirit. And number five, the only way to win an argument is to avoid it. So friends, I hope that this has been a blessing to you. If you're interested in knowing how you can have more experience with, like in my testimony, I had experienced partners who were there to train me, who take me under their wings and help me to learn effective soul-winning principles. What we do is every week with the Army of Youth, we get together in these online Bible studies that we call squads. And we have these Bible studies for an hour a week, and we partner people up with experience, with the inexperienced, and they go out and they give Bible studies online to people all around the world. They're coming. There's multiple options, times to choose from, so you could find a time that meets your schedule best. If you're interested in learning more principles of tag, you want to be more successful in soul winning, if you want to be engaged and in a structure that is able to help support you and equip you and encourage you and partner you up with people that are able to support you in your soul winning journey, then I encourage you to join us. All you have to do is go to the website, thearmyofyouth.com/squads, and you can sign up today. That's, again, go to thearmyofyouth.com/squads, and you can join us to win more souls for Christ. If you thought that this video was encouraging, then I encourage you to hit like and share this with someone else. Who do you know that could benefit by being more successful in their persuasion, in helping others to see things the way that God has been showing them? Then I encourage you to let them know. And remember, friends, God doesn't call a qualified, He qualifies a called.